The smell hit me before the visual did. It wasn't just the metallic tang of dried blood. It was the sickly sweet chemical stench of formaldehyde mixed with expensive cologne and rotting gardenias. I stepped over the yellow police tape that fluttered like a dead bird in the drafty hallway, my trench coat heavy with the relentless rain that had been drowning the city for 3 days straight. The room was a tailor's workshop, but it looked more like an abattoir designed by a mad artist. Mannequins stood in the shadows, their forms rigid, judging the chaos. But one mannequin in the corner wasn't made of plaster. It was wearing a suit that fit too perfectly, a texture that didn't reflect the light. It absorbed it. That was the victim, or rather parts of several. The title of this file is The Stitch of Vanity, authored by yours truly, the man who drinks too much to forget and charges too much to remember. The date was November 14th, 1947. The place, a basement workshop on East 4th Street. The time, 2 a.m., the hour when the city stops pretending to be civilized. It started, as these things always do, with a woman who walked into my office 3 days prior. Her name was Isla Morales. She didn't knock. She just pushed the frosted glass door open and brought a storm of expensive perfume in with her. She had the kind of beauty that made you check your wallet and your conscience at the same time. Dark eyes, rimmed with red, not from crying, but from a lack of sleep. She was wearing a coat that cost more than my car, and beneath the velvet, she was shaking. "Mr. Brooks," she said, her voice trembling like a violin string about to snap. "My sister, Elena. She went for a fitting on Monday. She never came home." I looked at her, really looked at her. I didn't see a grieving sister. I saw a walking paycheck. "The police have a missing persons bureau, Mrs. Morales. I find things people want to keep hidden, not people who just wandered off. The police are useless," she snapped, slamming a stack of cash onto my scarred oak desk. "They say she ran away with a lover, but Elena wouldn't leave without her collection. She was obsessed with perfection. She found a tailor, a man named Silas Reed. She said he could make her new again. I took the money. The door to my office doesn't open for virtue. It opens for desperation and for the note that pays the landlord. When I finally broke into Silas Reed's workshop that rainy Tuesday, I realized the police were worse than useless. They were blind. The scene was immaculate in a terrifying way. There were no struggles, no overturned chairs, just bolts of fabric, silk, wool, cashmere, and among them scraps of something pale and leathery. I picked up a piece with my handkerchief. It had a tattoo on it, a small butterfly. I recognized it from the photo Isla showed me. The tourists would call it a homicide. I called it a collage. I lit a cigarette to kill the smell, but the smoke just danced with the ghosts. This wasn't a crime of passion. This was industry, and I had to dive into the dark to find the rest of the pattern. I don't believe in coincidences, and I definitely don't believe in the innocence of a man who owns 500 surgical scalpels, but no medical license. The official police report filed by Detective Maverick Evans listed Silas Reed as a person of interest who had fled town. Evans was a good cop, but he thought in black and white. He was looking for a man running from guilt. I knew better. Reed wasn't running. Artists don't abandon their gallery just before the unveiling. I sat in my office, the neon sign from the bar across the street flickering against my wall, nursing a glass of cheap bourbon that tasted like gasoline and regret. To understand the rot in this city, you have to be willing to inhale it. I pulled the evidence out of my pocket, a spool of thread I'd swiped from the scene. It wasn't cotton or polyester. It was catgut, surgical suture material, dyed midnight blue. The clues were screaming, but they were whispering in a language only the deranged speak. Reed wasn't just killing these women, he was harvesting them. I tracked his suppliers, not fabric wholesalers, but chemical supply houses on the docks. He had ordered gallons of tanning agents and preservatives. I found him 2 nights later, not at a train station, but in a condemned theater in the warehouse district. He had set up a makeshift studio on the stage. I walked in, my hand on the .38 in my pocket, the silence of the auditorium pressing against my ears. "Mr. Reed," I called out. Silas Reed turned slowly. He was a small man, unassuming, with glasses that magnified his watery eyes. He held a needle in his hand, poised over a dress form. "You're interrupting the final fitting," Reed said, his voice soft, reasonable. Isla was impatient, but beauty requires time. I looked at the dress form. It wasn't fabric. It was a patchwork of distinct skin tones, stitched together with microscopic precision to create a perfect, seamless human suit. I saw the butterfly tattoo near the collarbone. "That's not beauty, Silas. That's a corpse," I said, stepping closer. "It's perfection," he hissed, his calm cracking. "God gives us flawed wrappings. Scars, blemishes, pores. I fix them. I take the best parts. Isla's shoulders, Elena's waist, the smooth back of that girl from the jazz club. And I create the ideal." It wasn't a tragedy to him. It was a project. He didn't kill out of hate. He killed out of an obsessive clinical need to correct nature's errors. He lunged at me, not with a gun, but with a pair of shears. I sidestepped. Violence in this town isn't a dance, it's a collision. I pistol-whipped him hard. He dropped like a sack of unwanted scraps. As I stood over him, looking at the grotesque masterpiece he had sewn together, I realized the who didn't matter as much as the why. And the why was just the vanity of a man who thought he could outstitch God. You find the truth, but it never looks like justice. It usually just looks like a mess you have to clean up, leaving you poorer, drunker, and with nightmares you can't evict. The case ended with the kind of silence that rings in your ears. Silas Reed didn't confess. He just critiqued the stitching on the straitjacket they put him in. He was hauled off to the asylum, babbling about skin tension and grain direction. When I told Isla Morales, she didn't cry. She just stared at the wall, her face a mask of porcelain perfection that suddenly looked too fragile. She handed me the rest of my fee, but she wouldn't look at my hands. She knew what they had touched. Analytically speaking, Reed was a textbook case of somatoparaphrenia mixed with a god complex, filtered through the lens of a craftsman. His modus operandi was chillingly efficient. Seduction through the promise of aesthetic perfection, followed by chemical incapacitation. He treated murder like he was measuring an inseam. It reminds me of the old penny dreadfuls, but bloodier. The motivation wasn't money or lust. It was a twisted aestheticism. He wanted to wear the world, literally. The literature calls them monsters. I call them neighbors. The legacy of this case: a boarded-up shop on 42nd Street that kids dare each other to run past. A wealthy family that will never look at a needle and thread the same way again. And for me, a check that cleared, but didn't feel like enough to buy back the sleep I lost. The crime is solved, the bad guy is in a box, but the city is still sick. It just waits for the next infection. Speaking of you, listening to this in the safety of your living room or through your headphones on a crowded train, recounting this is like peeling a scab. It bleeds, it stings, and it reminds you of the wound. I don't tell you this to entertain you. I tell you this because someone has to remember the ugly parts of the human condition. I'm the custodian of the secrets you're too afraid to keep. But dragging these memories into the light takes a toll. I need that silence now. I need the noise to stop so I can hear the next tragedy coming. And it is coming. There's a new envelope under my door. No return address. Just a smell of salt water and old money. But that's a problem for tomorrow. If you want this office to stay open, if you want me to keep descending into the sewer so you don't have to, you know the drill. Keep the channel alive. Subscribe. Share the misery. The night is long and the rent is due. Enough talk. Turn off the lights. Lock your windows. And for God's sake, don't open the door for strangers. I have a glass to fill.